My aunt used my father's memorial to announce that I had abandoned him, then passed around a donation basket with her own bank app taped to it. She stood 3 feet from Dad's urn, dabbing dry eyes with a lace handkerchief, while my name echoed through the church speakers like an accusation. My name is Daniel Price. I'm 34, an EMS supervisor in Columbus, Ohio, and my father, Robert Price, was a retired mail carrier who knew every dog, porch step, and pothole on his old route. Dad passed in March at 62, and I paid $8,740 for his memorial at St. Mark's Lutheran on April 12th. My Aunt Cheryl, Dad's older sister, was 57, a real estate agent with frosted hair, pearl earrings, and a voice that could turn syrup into vinegar. She told me, "Danny, let me help. Your father would want family around you." I believed her because grief makes you reach for any hand offered. She handled flowers, programs, and the guest book. I handled the urn, the photos, and the scholarship fund Dad had always wanted for local trade students. The first strange thing was the flowers. Dad loved sunflowers because they reminded him of my mother's garden, but Cheryl switched them to white lilies without asking. The church smelled sharp and sweet, almost like cleaner, and my stomach tightened when I saw them. "Sunflowers look cheap," she said, brushing lint from her sleeve. Then she asked for access to Dad's email for old photos. 2 days later, my cousin Marcus texted me, "Why is Aunt Cheryl saying she paid for everything?" I stared at my phone in the ambulance bay, diesel fumes hanging in the cold air, and told myself people misunderstand grief. On the morning of the memorial, the church was hushed except for organ music humming through the walls. I walked in carrying Dad's framed Postal Service photo, my fingers sweating against the glass. Pastor Glenn handed me the printed program, and my mouth went dry. The cover showed Cheryl standing beside Dad at a family picnic, cropped so I was barely visible in the background. Inside, under special tribute, it read, "Cheryl Price, Robert's devoted caregiver and the family's anchor." My eulogy had been moved after hers. I found Cheryl in the fellowship hall, arranging a table covered with her real estate brochures beside Dad's urn. "What is this?" I asked, holding up the program. She smiled without looking at me. "A tribute to the whole family. This is Dad's memorial." Her lips tightened. "Then maybe you should have acted like a son while he was alive." The room tilted. I could hear coffee percolating, cups clinking, people murmuring behind me. Before I could answer, she walked to the lectern. The scene she caused was worse than embarrassing. It was surgical. Cheryl took the microphone, sighed into it, and said, "Some of us were there for Robert when others were too busy with their careers." A low ripple moved through the pews. My ears rang. She looked directly at me. "I won't name names. This is a day of grace." Then she lifted a wicker basket. Taped to the front was a printed QR code labeled Robert Price Family Expense Fund. I recognized the phone number underneath. Hers. My Uncle Paul whispered, "Danny, did you approve that?" "No," I said, but my voice came out thin. Cheryl kept going. "Any help today will go toward the costs I've carried quietly." I stood so fast the chair legs scraped the floor. "Stop passing that basket." She blinked at me like I had interrupted a prayer. "Daniel, don't make a scene." "You already did," I said. People turned. The lilies burned my nose. Dad's urn sat between us, bronze and silent, and I felt like someone had stolen the last room where I was allowed to mourn. After the service, I learned the betrayal had layers. Cheryl had collected $12,600 from relatives, telling them I was overwhelmed and unable to cover arrangements. She had redirected 3 checks meant for Dad's scholarship into an account under her name. The funeral home showed me an email where she claimed she was acting executor. My hands shook so hard the paper rattled. Then came the first twist. Dad's neighbor, Mrs. Alvarez, pulled me aside in the parking lot. Her perfume smelled like roses and rain. "Daniel," she whispered, "your aunt came by your father's house last week with a locksmith." My chest went cold. A locksmith? She said the house was basically hers now. The second twist landed that night. Marcus forwarded me a screenshot of a message Cheryl had sent him. "Robert promised me the house for caring for him. Daniel won't accept it, but papers are being handled." Papers. My father had left everything in a clean trust drafted 2 years earlier. I was trustee. Cheryl knew it because she had witnessed the family conversation at Dad's kitchen table under the humming ceiling fan, while Dad said, "No confusion after I'm gone." Daniel handles it. For 9 nights, I barely slept. My apartment smelled like reheated coffee and unopened sympathy flowers. I kept replaying Cheryl's voice through the church speakers, my father's name twisted into her performance. I would wake at 3:12 a.m. with my jaw clenched, the blue glow of my phone on the ceiling, scrolling messages from relatives asking if I was okay, or, worse, if Cheryl was telling the truth. Grief is heavy. Public humiliation makes it heavier. I couldn't even open Dad's old lunchbox without feeling heat rise behind my eyes. The turning point came in a padded envelope from Dad's old coworker, Mr. Keene. Inside was a flash drive and a note written in careful block letters. You need to hear what she said after you left. The recording caught Cheryl in the fellowship hall, laughing softly. Once probate starts, Daniel won't know what hit him, she said. My grief hardened into something clean and focused. I called Maureen Shaw, a probate attorney with silver glasses and a voice calm enough to lower your pulse. Her office smelled like paper, lemon polish, and strong tea. I brought receipts, bank statements, screenshots, the church program, and Dad's trust. Maureen listened without interrupting, tapping a yellow pen against a legal pad. She wants a stage, Maureen said. So we give her one, with lights. We moved carefully. First, we notified the church and requested all security footage and audio from the memorial. Pastor Glenn gave a written statement confirming Cheryl changed the program without my approval. Second, Maureen sent preservation letters to the payment app, funeral home, and Cheryl's brokerage. Third, I asked every relative to forward texts, receipts, and donation confirmations. Marcus called me. You sure you want all this out there? I watched rain crawl down my kitchen window. She did it in public. The truth can be public too. The trap was simple. Maureen filed a formal accounting demand in probate court after Cheryl submitted a handwritten amendment claiming Dad left her the house and his 1968 Ford truck. We didn't accuse her online. We didn't argue at family dinners. We let her believe I was frozen by grief. Cheryl almost slipped away. The payment page vanished 3 hours after Maureen's letter hit her inbox. But I had screenshots, timestamps, and donor confirmations. Her brokerage claimed they had no knowledge of her fundraising until Maureen produced a flyer Cheryl had printed on company letterhead. 2 days before the hearing, Cheryl called me from a blocked number. Her voice was tight, stripped of its church lady sweetness. Daniel, we can settle this quietly. I stood in Dad's garage, smelling motor oil and old cedar from his workbench. Quietly like you did at the memorial? You're confused by grief. No, I said. For the first time since he died, I'm seeing clearly. The probate hearing was on May 28th, in a courtroom that smelled like dust, carpet, and nervous breath. Cheryl arrived in a navy suit, pearls glowing at her throat, her husband Ken trailing behind with a gray face. She sat across from me and gave a tiny smile, like we were about to negotiate over Thanksgiving seating. The judge, Honorable Patricia Weller, reviewed the documents. Ms. Price, you are claiming Robert Price amended his trust on March 18th? Yes, Your Honor, Cheryl said smoothly. My brother wanted to honor my sacrifices. Maureen stood. Your Honor, may we play a recording? Cheryl's smile flickered. The courtroom speaker crackled, then her voice filled the room. Once probate starts, Daniel won't know what hit him. Ken looked at her like he had never seen her before. Maureen continued. We also have church audio from April 12th. Cheryl whispered, That's private. The judge looked over her glasses. A public memorial service is not private, Miss Price. Then came Cheryl's voice again, asking for donations for costs she carried quietly. Maureen placed my credit card receipts on the projector. Church hall, flowers, earned transport, catering, obituary. Every charge had my name. The screen glowed white against Cheryl's face. The judge asked, Where did the $12,600 go? Cheryl swallowed. Family expenses. What family expenses? Silence stretched. Someone coughed behind me. Then Maureen delivered the final blow. The handwritten amendment had been notarized by Cheryl's coworker, Denise Hall, at 2:15 p.m. on March 18th. Hospital visitor log showed Dad was with me at Riverside Methodist at that exact time, under observation, signing nothing. The notary stamp on the document had expired 6 months earlier. Judge Weller's voice went cold. I am referring this matter for investigation. Cheryl's pearl necklace shifted as her throat worked. Danny, she said, turning to me. Tell them this is a misunderstanding. I looked at her hands, the same hands that had passed that basket beside my father's urn. You made my dad's memorial about you, I said. Now the truth is about you too. The consequences came fast. Cheryl was removed from any estate involvement that same day. Her brokerage suspended her, then terminated her after the payment app records and forged documents surfaced. The county pursued charges related to fraud and forgery. She was booked, released pending proceedings, and later ordered to pay restitution. Her real estate license was suspended. Ken filed for divorce after discovering she had used their joint account to cover shortages. At church, Pastor Glenn read a public apology the next Sunday, voice trembling through the sanctuary speakers. I got every dollar back, $12,600 from relatives, $3,400 in scholarship checks, and legal fees from Cheryl after the court order. More important, Dad's house stayed in the trust where he wanted it. I restored his truck with Marcus on Saturday mornings, the garage smelling like oil, coffee, and sawdust. In September, the Robert Price Trade Scholarship awarded its first $5,000 to a 19-year-old electrician's apprentice who cried when I handed him the certificate. We held a second memorial in Dad's backyard under the sunflowers my mother had planted years before. No microphones, no performance, just neighbors, mail carriers, cousins, and stories that smelled like barbecue smoke and fresh-cut grass. I read the eulogy Cheryl had buried in the program, and this time my voice didn't shake. Cheryl tried to steal my father's last goodbye and sell it as her sacrifice. Instead, she exposed herself in front of everyone she wanted to impress. I lost a parent, but I gained a spine made of steel. I protected his name.